I know that these messages are often targeted at young people who are confused by or persecuted because of their sexuality. But I hope my story stands to show how bullying affects everyone, regardless of whether you're gay, straight, bi, intersex, transgendered, white, black, Asian. It doesn't matter. I just want you to know that it really does get better though. I don't often share my story with many people, and it's not because I'm ashamed, but I am a private person, and to be honest, it still brings back memories that make me feel uncomfortable. But here I am today. I'm 22 years old. I study not only medicine but international relations as well, and I feel that I've achieved so much to be proud of. So, if I can help you get from your personal hell to somewhere where you can eventually feel good about yourself, I'm very happy to tell you my story. I grew up in country New South Wales in Australia and went through public education all my schooling. In my first year of high school, I was targeted by a gang of bullies who came to make the next 4 years of my life absolute hell. Within the first month of being at my new high school, I was beaten up by one of them in front of the whole school. And no one came to my help, even though I wouldn't hit him back because I knew I was better than that. And then rumours went around school as to why this happened. My favourite was actually that I was dealing dodgy drugs, which was a little bit concerning. I don't know where it came from. But in the end, I can only think of one reason why I was targeted, and it was because I was an easy target, and they were jealous of some things that I had and they didn't. It didn't stop there though. I was constantly harassed by members of this group. They seemed like they were just around every corner, baiting me, trying to get me to retaliate so they could get a good enough excuse to beat me up again, I guess. Naturally, I couldn't relax any time I was at school. I just became a bundle of nerves. I couldn't concentrate. I had to leave classes where my friends were because these other people were in them. I even had to plan my way from one class to the next, just in case I ran into one of them. So I had to compose myself to actually make the way between the two classes. Finally, it all sort of came to head when at a community event where I was bailed up and threatened until I handed over some money that I was carrying. And this is when the police got involved, which made the physical harassment much less, but realistically the damage had been done for me. This is psychological abuse, and bullying of any form is this. It was also physical abuse with the assault. So how did I cope? Well, I guess I coped as best as I could, but this really wasn't good enough for me to keep functioning. I ended up breaking down multiple times because the stress was just way too much. And the stress in me manifests as anger. So because I just became so constantly angry, I managed to alienate some of my closest friends, and I said some of the most horrible words to my family that I ultimately didn't mean. I ended up needing to see a school counsellor to find new and healthy ways to cope with the anxiety and stress. But eventually I sunk into one of the deepest depressions I've ever known. I had no idea how it was going to end. I even saw a doctor for medications, but I don't think I fully recovered until at least 4 years after that, which is when these people eventually dropped out of school and I actually didn't see them again. Although every case is different, I know what you might be going through. This bullying changed me. It changed my very being. I became an insular and a much less confident person. So in order for me to cope, I actually turned to things that I knew that these people wouldn't be involved in. But they also turned out to be things that I quite enjoyed, like theatre and volunteering in the community, where I realised that I was accepted and valued for what I contributed. Naturally, because I was not athletic. I'm an intellectual. I was involved in extracurricular activities. I became at the mercy of plenty of insults, like faggot. We've all heard that a million times, I guess. And I particularly remember one day, actually, one guy in my maths class even said, "Watch your ass," to a guy sitting next to me. Let's face it, they're pretty hard to find comebacks to, and I had nothing. And they hurt regardless whether or not they apply to you. It just comes down to the simple fact that kids are bloody mean, and they're cruel a lot of the time. And it's funny how things change after you leave school, though, because tables totally turn. I now have people wishing they studied a second language at school, like I did, and so I'm actually left correcting some of their uni homework for them. Um, and realistically, anyone who still makes a homophobic comment is an absolute douchebag. It's totally for the 90s. It's totally unacceptable around my parts, and we just don't tolerate it anymore. And we're still a little way off yet, but I think most people know that it doesn't matter what your sexuality is. I don't actually understand why someone needs to come out of the closet. Well, it's not like a straight person needs to announce that they're straight, so why does a gay person need to do the same? Sexuality is only part of someone, and it's much like your favourite type of music or the language that you speak at home. People use those words, like faggot, to hurt you. But if you think that they might apply to you, well, my advice is just claim and own them, because then the words just become useless. Now, living should be about being happy, and so do what does make you happy. And if that's liking the same sex, remember that it is okay to be gay. Some people, like your parents, they might not like it at first, but in the end, you only need to justify yourself to yourself. To any parents out there, well, it's not really like you have a choice in the matter, and it's not your choice to make. And the more you fight it, I guess the more fucked up your kid's going to be. So learn to dig it, and dig it good. And thankfully, most people, once you leave school, especially in the city, they don't give a shit about whom you like. If you're a cool person with something to contribute, you will find your niche. The more interesting and diverse, the better. So 4 years on, I've moved on from my personal hell that was school onto being what I would call a successful young man. If I were asked what I would have liked to have changed, well, naturally I would have initially thought that I would have liked school to have become more bearable. But then I think it wouldn't have made me who I am today. As much as I wish that they didn't have that sort of influence, those schoolyard bullies actually made me who I am, and made me realize what I'm all about. And it took quite some time, but I fucking love who I am now. I look forward to everything in the future, finding someone I love, having a family, saving lives in my job, contributing to society. And let's be honest, there's nothing better than living just in the moment and doing fun and exciting things like traveling and partying. I've thought of ending it all during some of those depressive episodes, but then I realized that this would have been a huge mistake. Because as hard as today or tomorrow is, or even the next day, somewhere down the line there is always going to be a better day that makes every shit day before that not matter. If it may take weeks, might take months, might take years, but it really does get better.